Here we are. Good evening, everybody. This is the cable table tonight. I'm sitting down because I'm going to be working with watercolor. I've had some requests in the past to do water and reflections and skies, and so tonight we will just concentrate on that. The camera is behind me here tonight. Hopefully it's going to be at the proper angle for you to be able to follow the composition and not to make it too much of an angle. I know that if you're doing something with a horizontal composition, it looks like this, it's rather distracting. But I will attempt to work at an angle. The problems about watercolor painting are going to be talked about here, and also the technique of landscape painting with watercolor. A few weeks ago I used some rubber cement as the blocking out medium to keep the paper white, because the main point of watercolor is to keep the whites the paper. You don't use opaque color in watercolor. So we're going to do that again. I have a pad of what is called Bristol board sketchbook. It is pure white. It may play havoc with the lighting and the camera and so on, but I've got to work on pure white paper. This pad costs, well, $7.98, and there are 20 pages. If anybody's a quick mathematician, they can figure out just how much that'll cost per page. It is available in all the art stores around here. It's not an enormous canvas, which costs a fortune. It is a pad. And for people who are just beginning, that kind of expense, the expense of the materials should be kept at a minimum. Rather than to some other art programs or painting programs are on, and they work in huge areas, which means you use an enormous amount of paint, an enormous amount of canvas, and it is virtually impossible to instruct the covering of that large a space in 1 hour, much less in a half an hour, with plus all the talk that goes on besides. I have here a white, perfectly ordinary white kitchen plate, a little oval job, which is rather pretty. I think it's a little, oh, I spilled some. And it's got watercolors squeezed out from watercolor tubes. I have not, and here is what is most people are familiar with in watercolor, is a box of little cakes, which I wet beforehand because they need some time to become soft, and so that the color is intense when you go to it. I have a rather large selection of brushes. I'll probably wind up only using 1 or 2. This is my very large, I'll put a little piece of white paper behind it. This is my very long bristled brush. It's called a striping brush. It's got a long bristle and it's for doing grass and branches and small details. This is what is called a fan brush. It is used only in watercolor, very rarely in oils, and it is for flowing color on smoothly in a larger area. This is a very thin brush this way, very wide that way. The other ones are perfectly ordinary, round, red sable brushes. Probably the total cost of these 3 brushes is maybe $12 at the most. And they last you, as long as you take care of them, they last forever. All right, the first thing that one must do when one is doing any kind of painting is to draw. If you don't know how to draw, then practice drawing. But I'm going to give a very quick layout for this one, just to show you a little bit how you begin. I'm using some sienna. And there we are. I'm going. Oh, good. My paper. Oh, the paper. Let me see. How does it look right when it's all perfectly? Yeah. See, it's got to be at that angle for me to be able to show you the straightness of this composition. So I'll just do the best I can. I'm going to divide the page with not exactly in the middle because that's a little bit too symmetrical. And I'm going to just give you a horizon line. I'm going to give you is this as close as we can get? Yeah. I'm going to give you a distant shoreline coming right up onto the horizon line, and this is going to be the line of reflections. I told you we're going to work with water and to see if we can't manage the explanation of how water reflections are done. A little bit of an interest here in the foreground, and then up here another rise a little bit higher than the other side for interest and the line of reflections. And when we get the sky in, I'm going to give you some details of some tall trees here. Very good. Now, when I'm not going to use the rubber cement this time because I have no need for white. This is all going to be different. Here, dead center, or a little bit off center, I'm going to do a setting sun. Right about here. I'm not going to draw it because the line will make a stain on the paper and it will be visible in the final sky color. I'm going to flood this page with water. Naturally, my water is now nice and clean, and therefore you do not see it until I lift it up and show you the reflections. There. You can see that the water is now flooding the paper. This is for watercolorists, you see? The rest of the paper is dull. This is full of water, and there are all those hot lights reflected on this water. Okay, with a brush full of color, I'm going to begin by flooding the page with a rather intense. I think you'll be interested in seeing what happens here. I'm going to give you a very dark and apparently unsky-like color because the blue sky syndrome is just overwhelming. Everybody is doing me blue skies, and I defy you to have seen a blue sky within the last week in our general area. So let's just go along with the weather patterns that we've been having for the last few weeks, the wettest spring on record. Therefore, we are now not going to be working with blue sky. I'm going to be working with dull skies until I introduce the color of the sun. All of this is being done on wet paper, and blending of color is a question that I get a great deal of the time. As you can see, I keep going back to my color source. I mix watercolors the same as you mix oil colors. I believe you can see my little dish back here. It's now full of that very dark color that I used before. And I'm mixing some right out of the tube. I've got a limited palette here. Red, yellow, blue, some sienna, some Indian red, some viridian green, ultramarine blue, and some umber. Now, this color has been put on. I am still perfectly safe with this wet paper because it's far from getting into the drying stage. obviously the sky is dark above, getting paler and more intense below towards the sunset. A lot of people, one of the reasons that I picked this is that people say, boy, I don't know how people do sunsets. Well, of course, they are extremely difficult to do because they're so fleeting. They don't last very long. If you're out there trying to wait for the sunset, the next thing you know, the sunset is there and then it's gone. So to observe it requires pretty much a photographic mind, also a very quick sketching ability, and a memory. So if you can come up with those qualities, then you can do a sunset. Otherwise, it's practice and it's also impression of what it looks like. An impression is what we're after. I'm going to put a very pale yellow in here in the middle and blend it out towards the flowing towards the orange field to try to give it a glow. Now I'm going to mop up some of that yellow in the middle to try and get the white back. So, to make things glow in watercolor requires a lot of water because of the blending. The blending is important. As you can see, I'm putting on and taking off water just to try to get the blend. Perhaps I should use a little bit darker tone here and give the feeling of impending night. As I say, we're working with impressions here. You can keep, the nice thing about watercolor is that you in fact can change it a little bit, providing you keep it wet. Now, while this is wet, you can possibly, with great care and a little bit of subtlety and a smaller brush, while the paper is still wet, give a cloud formation very carefully. Be sure that you don't clobber this thing with an unfortunate shape. The best thing to do is to be very improvisational and to be very delicate. So if you were to be able to put one of these slight lines in, yeah, I don't like those two the same length, so I'm going to shorten this a bit. That's better. Be sure that you also try to remember your sense of design when you're doing this kind of thing. And 3 is always a very nice number to work with, so you might want to put a little third one over there. Now, this is still wet. I'm going to show you. You can see how the reflections tell you that this is still slightly wet. I'm going to work on this area here. How straight can I get it? There, okay. I'm going to start to work on this area here while it is still a little bit wet because I'm dealing with a distance problem and a lack of color because it's dark and we're trying to give the illusion of a sunset. And so I'm going to just give you a very darkened area over here on, well, it's my left side. I suppose it's the left side of the screen as well, yes. The simpler, the better. I'm working from some reference material, which I'll talk to you about a little bit later because I'm experiencing a dilemma in my viewing audience that says I can't get out and sketch, I don't have the time. Or also I work in the daytime and I can't go out and sketch in the daytime, I can only work at night. Therefore, you must have some kind of resource or reference material at hand in your home. And of course the obvious thing in this day of cameras and film is that you must use photographs. If you can't use sketches, and a lot of people don't sketch, you must use photographs. So we'll talk about that in a minute when I finish this and see whether or not I have succeeded in working from a photograph. Can you see that? Is there any way of getting this just a little bit closer, Dave? Only slightly closer would make me very... Oh, there we go. Oh, wonderful. You see, there's always the wonder of this electronic thing is that there are endless possibilities. And there's a young lady called Linda on the other camera. This is the first time she's ever done this show, so it's to her credit to plunge in with both feet, as it were, and tackle this problem. Now, as you can see, I have merely used some very intense and simplified color here. It's almost nothing at all, but it's exactly what happens when you are using something which is called chiaroscuro. It's an Italian word meaning shaded. Chiaro, scuro, means darkness and shade and so forth, and it implies a silhouette kind of technique of painting when you are trying to give the atmosphere of this sort of thing, where there's a great deal of light in the distance and things are seen against that lighted area. This brush that I showed you before, this wonderful thing called a striping brush, is doing what it's supposed to do now, namely the details. To get details by hitting the camera with a large brush full of paint and hope that something happens is not the way I instruct painting. I believe that detail and attention to detail is vital, especially in landscape painting, as well as portraiture, of course. And probably, if you were to really investigate it, all other painting as well. The details are one of the important things. I'm not an impressionist. I'm a realist, and hence my concern for the proper use and technique of details. Well, we have 3/4 of a watercolor with the distance. Now we have a problem because this is a river. How am I going to tell the story of the river? I'm going to begin with the same technique as I did with the sky area. I'm going to flood it with water. Use the fan brush because it's what holds the most water. And as you can see, virtually no color is going on here, even though my water's gotten a little bit dirty. But you can see the water going on. Clear as it is, it still is reflected, which makes this technique of demonstration very good. I can't get this in a classroom. I can't get the reflections so clearly showing when I'm in a classroom. I can get them here with all these intense lights overhead. Now, naturally, the water below is a mirror to the sky above. That presumes that if there is an orange sky above, such as there is here, the water below will most certainly not be blue. A mistake which I find is made very often in some other programs, whereby no matter what color the sky is, the water is rendered blue. Impossible. Can't work. We're dealing with the mirror syndrome. I am putting in a sort of an abstract and improvisational mirror image of what is above. I, however, have a path of light that comes from this brilliant area, and I'm using a technique of mopping up the color with this napkin. Because water has ripples, you would certainly never have the path of light a straight line, as if you had just done it with a ruler. You would certainly provide for the ripples. Now, because the sky in the upper area here has turned very dark, it is reasonable to assume that the same thing will happen in the mirror image below. So, our darkness is going to begin to appear towards the foreground of the picture. And it will be just as intense as it is in the sky. Sometimes even more so. The intensity is sometimes, it all depends upon atmosphere, and we all know that atmosphere is what landscape painting is all about. We are not, and landscape painters do not paint 4 million leaves on the trees. They paint the impression of the tree. And so the impression of this water is what we're after. The rounded area of the sunset is going to have to be picked up in the water area as well, following the same kind of pattern, namely a repetition upside down of what there is above. But, surprise, surprise, there is a reflection that has got to be dealt with that is coming from the land. Therefore, let me put this darkness in the foreground here, and because the paper is so nice and wet, I can do the same kind of blending that I did above. This is not subtle enough. This has got to be worked in much more carefully. Therefore, you go over it while it's still wet. If you have questions about what I'm doing, I'm sure they'll put the number on the screen and you can call, and if I can help you in any way, that's why I'm here. That's what this program's all about. Now I'm going to deal with the reflections. I'm using all just very dark color, which is ultramarine and a raw umber. I mean burnt umber, excuse me. Raw umber is not the color at all. It's burnt umber. Raw umber is a very sort of a dead color. It's not very pleasant to work with because it has got those properties of being absolutely sort of dead, and so I avoid that, especially in the use of watercolor. There has to be a relationship between this tree trunk and the reflections below, but it must be very subtle. And it is not done by pulling color down with a fan brush. It is done individually, just the way the trees above were. There has to be a subtlety with reflections as well, because they move, and if you have them too static, they look as though they're made of cement, and obviously reflections are very volatile, just like water. Now we have here the mirror image reflection of this body of this landmass, and try to see that little point up there should be repeated down below, not too distinctly, because you have, after all, moving water. This kind of picture will shine. If it doesn't shine, then you start over again, because if you have the nerve to and the desire and the passion in your soul to go and paint water, you'd better be faithful to it, because it's an element which might... Oh, there's a phone call. Good. The element of water is extremely tricky and very evasive and elusive, rather, and it's a problem. Okay, it seems that I have a phone call. Good evening, and can I help you?
Yes, hello. My name is Donna. I'm just seeing your picture on TV right now for the first time.
Yeah.
I would like to know, do you paint with oils?
Oh, yes.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yes, I've been doing that on and off now for 3 years here.
And you on weekly, or...?
I'm on every Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock, and it's repeated during the week. You must pay attention to your previews. You obviously have cable?
Well, I just got it this week.
Well, welcome to the group.
Thank you. I like it. Now, about your painting, this is watercolors,
yes,
not acrylics?
Yes, it is.
And can I see the picture? I'm seeing you so much. I wanted to ask a question about the picture.
Okay, I'll hold this up and you talk about it, and I'll be happy to talk about it. What is it that you'd like to know?
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, now I came in when you were doing the water part.
Yes.
I missed the sky. Now, you paint the light colors first, and I wanted to know, how did you get the dark background? The same way you did with the water, or?
You mean up here?
Yes.
Yes, of course. There is no magic trick to this. The application of the dark color was done by using the paint, the dark color.
What colors were they?
What colors? Good enough. Viridian green and burnt umber.
Oh, okay. I have the burnt umber.
Good. Well, the viridian green could probably be substituted with, well, intense green is very difficult to handle. It's tricky and it's chemical and it's just awfully difficult to handle. But the burnt umber and the viridian green is a nice idea, but you can use hooker's green or emerald green.
Oh, okay.
If you use the emerald green, you'll have to use more of the umber.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Whoa, well, thanks for calling, Donna.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Well, we have a new viewer on the system, which is what this is all about. I'm glad that there are people who are hooking up into this Channel 6 Brookhaven Cable Television Network because there is a great deal going for it. I have a husband who hasn't been feeling too well lately, and he's been watching television, and the television fare is repetitious and sometimes not very entertaining. So I must say that the cable networks, to me, are really the answer to television. And these shows that mean that I can speak directly to the audience and answer questions is a learning experience which I think is probably worth every dime that this hookup costs. So I appreciate Donna calling me, and anybody else who wants to do the same, we can chat about the merits of cable television or about painting. But anyway, here is only a very vague beginning. Let me see from a distance. Here I am against it. A beginning of a lesson in watercolor. And the use of various kinds of brushes for the effects that are needed, and also to pay attention to composition. We can go on to another one now. I'm going to show you now that we have established the fact that all skies are not blue, such as you see here. Let me pull this out and hopefully not tear it in the process. I'm using apparently very good quality paper tonight. It's giving me a resistance. Well, we'll just turn it over. No sense in struggling. Let me have a different kind of composition. I'm going to turn the pad around the other way. Now, I'm going to start again the way I did before and lay this out. Do not for one moment think that you can get a blank space in front of you and just plunge in without any plan and without any drawing. That is not what I would call a serious attempt at composing a picture. It is accidental. Either that, or it is a formula kind of painting that all your mountains look alike, all your skies look alike, and all the water looks alike, which is not possible. So I'm now going to work on a vertical form and lay this out once again by giving you the horizon, which is going to disappear completely when I finish laying this out. The horizon line is going to be high up, just the same as it was before, because I'm interested in foreground. I'm dealing with water tonight. That means that the foreground is the part that you have to reserve for the water. Phone call. Very good. I have a little itty-bitty bird back here called Dave that says phone call. Okay. Good evening. Can I help you in any way?
Yeah, hi. My name is Jenna.
Say that again?
My name is Jenna.
Jenna. Good, yes.
Yeah, good. I want to know that I'm just getting into watercolors. And I want to know, I have a book here in front of me that I've been using by J.M. Perriman.
Yes?
Okay. Now, they tell me to wet the paper entirely, mount it on my board, and let it dry completely.
Yeah. You know what that does?
No.
That stretches the paper. It also prevents buckling.
Oh, okay.
The reason that you do that, and if you secure it to your board with some gummed tape, rather than the thumbtacks that they tell you, that's bad advice. The thumbtacks don't work.
Yeah, they say either tax or staple gun it, which is probably wrong too, right?
Okay. Well, I'm not going to question Mr. Perelman's technique. He probably makes it work very well. I'll tell you how I make it work. The gummed tape that you wet, not the self-adhesive tape, the gummed tape that you wet when you make a package. You understand?
Right.
Okay, Jenna, you will wet the paper. If it's a big piece of paper, you use the bathtub. If it's a little piece of paper, you put it underneath the kitchen faucet and you wet it. Cold water. And tape it all around securely to the board. Let it dry. It will shrink and it'll stretch when it's wet and shrink when it dries. Then it becomes absolutely rigid.
Right.
It will not buckle.
Right, I noticed
Then
that.
you wet the paper.
Then you wet it,
Again,
okay.
before you paint, you must wet it again.
Right.
My technique is that I wet the paper in stages. If did you see what I just did on the other one?
Yeah, I did. That's why I called, because I do it both ways.
Okay, you will find that wetting that paper down below, and you're not going to get to that for another hour or two, is, first of all, it's a wasted motion. Secondly, you wet the paper too much. And thirdly, you're not ready for that lower part.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
What else?
Okay, thank you very much.
Is that it?
That's it.
Good. Well, good luck with the painting, and follow Mr. What's-his-name's book, Perelman?
Yeah, Parramon, P-A-R-R-A-M-O-N.
Oh,
J.M. Parramon.
Is that a new book?
Yeah, it's by H.P. Books. It's a paperback.
Oh, good enough. What is it, 7 by 9 inches or something? Is it?
Right. It's How to Master Watercolor, step by step.
Okay, there are a couple of other watercolorists that you could refer to, but the best one is to go to the classics and go to Winslow Homer.
Oh, all right.
Man who's been dead now some 100-odd years, but he was the master.
Right.
And refer to some of the classic painters. You'll find a great deal going for you if you do that.
Oh, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenna.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. All right. I'm working now on a vertical, having explained that if I just did a horizontal, now I'm going to do a vertical, just for the variety. The space that I'm going to occupy, and I'm going to introduce a diagonal here, which always makes it more interesting because it affords distance. Diagonals give you distance. Now that doesn't look like very much of anything, but it's at least a plan. At least it's not hitting this paper with color before there's any plan. All right, distance. This is going to become foreground, and this is also going to be distance, but it's growing from here. So this is far distance. This is going to be a general area occupying color. So you see now the horizon line has totally disappeared, but I had to know where my horizon line was going to be because I don't paint with accidental technique. I plan it. Just like if I'm going to have the principal of the school out home for dinner, I'm going to plan it. I'm not going to throw a boiled egg at him or an old hamburger. I'm going to plan it. So you do the same thing with a painting. It's the same with any endeavor. Now, I'm flooding this paper. This is for Jenna, except that she watched me do it the first time. And phone call, another one. Oh, isn't that good? We're getting neat questions. Yes, good evening. Can I help you?
Hi, I was wondering if you could draw me paint me a picture of a deer in a forest with the river coming through.
Oh, what a nice idea. Yes, that requires a great deal more time than I would be able to do on this program. I'm going to do you the river that the deer could possibly be walking through, and the forest. But the deer would be a different problem. It would mean that I would have to do some sketches and some reference work, and I'm not prepared for that. But I'll do the forest and the river.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
It's better than nothing. Okay?
Okay.
What's
bye.
your name?
Jimmy Watson.
What, Jimmy?
Yeah.
How old are you?
11.
Do you paint?
Yeah.
Where?
In the art school.
In school. Do you paint at home at all?
Sometimes.
Good. Well, I'll do what I can for you. If I can maybe cheat a little bit and give you a deer in silhouette, that might help.
Okay.
Okay, fine.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, we have here now the wet paper for the top, and because we took care of that problem of non-blue sky in the first one, I'm going to do the blue sky, but I'm going to be really subtle about it. I don't want much color in this sky at all, because I got a point to make later. If this is visible at all, that's good. If it's not visible, that's still good, because I don't want very much sky to to overpower the coloring of this. And you know that if you have observed skies, if you're painting, you will know that skies come very pale. The sky today was blue for only a matter of moments. I'm spreading this pale blue area up here with the fan brush. You can see how wet it is. And hopefully the heat of these lamps is going to make that dry very fast. And while I'm waiting for it to dry, just let me tell you a little bit about this. This is a concert which I'm involved in. It is a concert of traditional American music, bluegrass and original. Old-time bluegrass and original music is what this says. The name of the band is Zeng. It's a band of 6 people this time. Adam and Mundi Klein and 4 guests are going to be playing at the Setauket Neighborhood House on the 7th of May, this coming Saturday night at 8 p.m. in their 4th annual spring concert. It's quite a lovely evening. These are a few of the instruments that they're going to be using. You can count that just about any instrument or any object that will make a noise will be played. There are bells and bones. And I don't know if they're going to play a garden hose, but it's possible. Fiddles and tongue drums and, well, it's just endless. Dulcimers and banjos and auto harps and guitars and bass, fiddle, and, of course, vocals. Do go if you can. It is an inexpensive donation to the neighborhood house of $3 for adults and $1.50 for children under 12. There are home-baked refreshments afterwards and during the intermission. So this is an evening for everyone, adults and children alike. If you feel like getting up and stomping and clogging on the dance floor, you may. It's not disco. Don't get me wrong, it isn't disco. It's probably old-fashioned clogging, and then the people up here in the East are much too shy to clog. Clogging takes place in Virginia. But anyway, I wanted to tell you about that concert. I'm involved with it because well, I kind of manage the band, and I'll be there. And it should be really quite a charming evening, as it has been for the last 4 springs. This little band has developed a rather interesting following, and it usually is sold out. So if you can come and make the people come falling out of the windows because it's so sold out, we'll be happy to see you. And there'll be plenty of stuff for you to eat, even if there are too many. So, here we go. Let's get back to this. We've only got a few more moments, 20 for them, as a matter of fact, and to be able to produce anything interesting in 20 minutes is something of a problem. So, we're going to deal now with the background, the dark area in the distance. Naturally, it is going to be paler than the light area, than the intense area in the foreground. So, you remember to keep the colors paler for the distance. I'm going to try to get rid of that horizon line. I'm not interested in it anymore. It was only used as a pattern. The improvisational quality of watercolor means that you can do what I'm doing here. Run your brush in any angle that you please in order to make the effect that you're after. You also must remember that there is light and shade being played in the distance as well. Keep it fairly pale, not too dark. I see if I can get rid of that line. And variety is the fascination of landscape painting. Nothing really is the same. As the eye travels across an interesting landscape, you'll find variety and difference of texture and color and shade and form. So here I am working towards the foreground, not too fast, because I want to be able to do the distance areas all at once. You don't jump from one thing to the other. You must stay in the same general area until you've completed that area. This is for watercolor. With oils, you can jump all over the place because oils are opaque. These are transparent, and you must understand that it's layers of color over other colors. That's why pale colors go on first, and the dark colors come on last. You cannot put a dark color over a pale color in watercolor and expect it to work. I mean, a pale color over a dark color. I beg your pardon. I'm talking and jabbering away and getting myself backwards. It is you must put pale colors first and work up to the darker ones. All right, we have there a vertical composition, very much like the other one, except it's going the other way. And the other one did not have this angle, this diagonal. Well, seeing as how we have a blue sky above, slightly blue, you may not believe this, but there are times when, as I said earlier in the earlier composition, the water sometimes intensifies the color slightly according to the atmosphere of the day. If the day has a lot of, well, I suppose you might call it weather conditions up above, or pollution, or well, what are some of the terms? I'm not a weatherman, so I can't really call upon those terms too cleverly. But depending upon the kind of atmosphere that there is out there at the time, there are some times when the water becomes more intense in color than the sky. I'm going to do that here and show you and find out if it works and see whether or not you really think it works. If it doesn't, call up and say so and say you're full of nonsense. It doesn't work that way at all. But then I'm afraid I'll be able to disprove it because I have a book. Good evening. Can I help you in any way?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Asher.
Oh, hi, Asher.
Hi. Whenever I mix my colors together, it's like the water takes over the colors and all the color disappears.
Ah, that's because you're just not using enough color and too much water.
When I work with watercolors.
Yeah, that's right. If you use too much water, it is going to eat up your color. If you use less water, Asher, and more color, you'll find that it works.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anything else?
No.
How's your sister?
Fine.
And your dad?
Fine.
And your ma?
Fine.
Good. Everybody's fine?
Yes.
Well, I hope to see you soon.
Okay, bye. Thank you very
Asher.
much.
You're welcome. That's Asher Bear, one of my loyal viewers and fans, and he is some little guy. The way he sticks to it and listens. I think he's going to be a painter. Told his father, watch out, you got a painter there. I've decided that with this picture I'm going to cheat. And cheating is allowed as long as you know you're cheating. If you say, oh, I'm not cheating, and you know you're cheating, well, then that's really cheating. That doesn't make any sense, but I really think I'm going to cheat for a very good reason. To show you how you can get out of a problem when you've got one. Namely, if you haven't saved the white paper, and a lot of people say, oh, I forgot to leave that pale so that I could put yellow leaves in there, then you really have to rely on opaque color. Nobody sends you to jail for using opaque color, and nobody is going to stand in judgment of the fact that it is a gouache painting, because gouache is a very acceptable medium. Watercolor and gouache are related, except that gouache happens to be opaque. I have a little bit of gouache here. You might think that's a funny word. It actually means tempera, but it has a few different properties in it. It's okay. Now, let's see whether or not there's any shine to this. I'd better use my favorite technique of mopping up some of the color that's too dark. Now, you can't do this with oils, and you can't do it with pastels, but you can do it with watercolor. A rather well-known American painter showed me that technique. His name was Adolphe Dehn, D-E-H-N. I hope he's still alive. He was kind of an older man when I met him a long time ago. He may yet be among us living painters. The technique of picking up color with cloth, any cloth, sponge or cloth. minutes. Good. All right. Thank you, Linda. You can see that none of this is done fast, and none of it can be done with tricks. It's planned. All right, we're going to be working towards the bank here. The color becomes a little bit more intense as you come towards the foreground. You've lost a little bit of that atmospheric quality that you wanted in the distance, and it is now becoming much more visible and vibrant. The colors are now beginning to be pure and not altered by the presence of atmosphere. Something to be considered at all times in landscape painting is atmosphere. Now let me get my, now what I'm doing here, let me show you what I'm doing here. I'm putting some water in my cake of white so that it becomes soft enough for me to use towards the end when I pull my the great cheat. I want a lot of darkness here in the foreground because the only way you're going to make something light is by making other places dark. It's not a contradiction at all. It is you know very well, or maybe you're all too young to know that during the war, yes, you're all too young, I can tell. There's a smile on the face of the two young camera people here saying, yes, I'm too young to remember the war. But a cigarette lit on the ground was visible from an aeroplane. And one of the main problems about the blackout thing was that one window with one dismal 15-watt bulb was visible from the air. So, when you're dealing with light, you are also dealing with dark. And it's an important thing to remember. So if you wanted this light sky to be brilliant, as sky usually is, you must keep this foreground area dark. The water here is now bright because it is light, and everything around it appears to be quite dark. If time is running out, I'd better get to this business of the details of this particular picture. And I'm going to simplify it a great deal right now by giving you an improvised tree. I'm going to improvise it. You don't want to, is there any way of coming in any closer, Dave? Just a little bit? Because this brush is so small that if we could see the way it works a little bit closer, it might be helpful. Yeah, that's good. Oh, neat. Good. So, because I'm an old hand at this, I find it quite, you know, it is not traumatic for me to just jump right in and without any previous drawing to just run right over a page of color. When you get more expert at it, you'll find that you can do it also. Now, nature has a wonderful pattern arrangement. Things begin in growing things as opposed to human things. Growing things begin they all begin very small, but in the pattern of a tree, the large areas are usually down in the beginning of the growing place, and everything winds up very small. Some of the terrible mistakes that I see in landscape painting and in tree painting particularly is that the branches do not become smaller as you get to the end of them. They get fatter sometimes. It shoots the whole tree into terrible mistakes. So remember, lift your brush, make the little branches thin at the end, let them disappear into almost nothing. The proportion of the tree growth is very important. Now, you will see that by introducing the tree in the foreground, everything else seems to have gone way, way off into the distance. Everything has gone has disappeared back there because of the foreground interest is first of all darker, and secondly it's bigger. If my color is now ready to pick up from my little plate of opaque color, I'm hoping this will work. If it doesn't, forgive me. Tune in next week. We'll make it work next week. Here is how you would, over this is opaque color now, and this is how you would do the details of the growth of, apparently, some maple trees in the fall. You can see that you must prepare the background first so that they can receive, the background can receive these paler colors. Now, don't be afraid to go over that because things grow in front of other things. It may look a little bit arbitrary as I'm putting this on. It may be looking a little bit accidental, but I'm trying to keep a form in mind of how these trees grow. And I am using reference material. So I've got, oh, how many minutes, Dave? Do you know? Anybody know? What do we got? 5? Oh, 5. Okay. Well, we can run up here onto the sky, and the same values that I use down here are showing much darker against the sky, and we all know why, because the sky is very pale. So the value, you think that maybe the leaves up here appear to be darker. They're not. They're the same as what is used below. It's just that the background is different. And that's the fascination of painting, that things change and color values play tricks on you. Very well. We don't have too much time left. If I wanted to make it even more intense down here in the foreground, I would be very inclined to put some foreground foliage. And with this, I would naturally use the very fine brush. This takes a little bit of practice because you are dealing with a very long bristle that sometimes won't behave itself very well. But if you remember, don't bear down too hard. Let the brush do the work. Lift it towards the end so that you get a delicacy of the blades. And when you've got the blades in, give them some variety. Maybe there's a broken one that goes up, a broken one such as this. 4. Okay, Dave says 4. 4 minutes it is. You can become quite dark in the foreground here because you are, after all, almost now too close. You're almost out of focus. Things that are really close to you tend to get out of focus. As you get older, they get even more out of focus. Things that are close to you suddenly get really fuzzy. That's why you have to stand on a chair to look at the phone book. 3 minutes. Okay, 3 minutes. Let me show you my reference material. If you pull back just a little bit, Dave, I'm going to show you how what I've been using for the people who have said, I cannot go out and paint. I must use photographs. All right. This is what I used today. This is obviously the one on the right is a photograph. The one here is a painting. I only worked on it 20 minutes or so. It will take considerably longer for you to work from a photograph, but this is the general manner in which you would approach the use of photography for your reference material, especially if you want to do landscapes and you can't go out. My other one is somewhere here in the book with a little designation, little thing, but I may not find it in time. No, I've lost it. Okay, can't find it. Maybe I can while I'm talking. You will find, all right. That's the way it happens. There. Now, let me turn this around and show you that my reference material for this was this. It's very dark in the pic. 2 minutes, good. This is the reference material. Not as close as you'd want it to be, but it was. The point is here. Let me talk to you now. The point here is not for me to produce a masterpiece in 25 minutes on one and 25 minutes on another. It's to show you technique. It's also to try to give you some idea of how you go about it, what you buy in order to do it, and how much time you should count on spending in practice. This should be regarded as practice. The watercolor technique, albeit quick and easy to get to and non-toxic. You don't have to worry about watercolor getting on your clothes. It doesn't stain them. It washes right out, whereas oils is staining. Watercolor technique is hard, very difficult. So If you do it, try to watch me once in a while when I do this watercolor thing. It might help you. It might give you a few shortcuts and some information which, for instance, Donna did not have about the business of wetting the paper. So, with a reminder once again that you have only 4 days to plan going to this concert. The Zeng concert is on Saturday night at 8 o'clock at the Setauket Neighborhood House, and I'll be there and be more than happy to welcome you to our musical part of the family. Good night. Thanks for watching. This is Pat Windrow at the Cable Table for Channel 6. Bye-bye.
Thank you.